It's time, isn't it?
Yeah, man. Is everybody clear about, just like SOP when you come in, bring up the scene file, you know, look at your waveform, look at your vector, all that? I just want to make sure that we have.
Yeah.
I could use a refresher as far as just reading the scopes and so on.
Okay, well, let's do that.
And
As far as the scope, for paint for talent, basically when I'm painting, you want to always set your iris first and set your blacks first, and then you can start painting. If you don't have that done, you're just going to be, chasing your tail.
Mm-hmm.
So always set your iris, set your blacks. If there's something black in the picture, digital black should be at 0 millivolts. So you should have black should be hitting at 0. You know what I mean? There's black out there on the chart, so that's way too washed out. That's why some of your monitors, you ever have a monitor that if you route black to it, I start saying no signal? We have
Yeah.
that, right?
The
So-
103 does that here
Yeah,
sometimes.
because digital black at 0, it senses it as no signal. It's not
Okay.
seeing anything, so that's why we get that. So that's where that should be. As far as talent, complexion, I don't know if you ever did analog, so IRE. The person with a dark complexion would be like 60 IRE, so lighter skin would be at 70. Well, that was when you had 100 units to work with. So millivolt, you have 700 units to work with. So it's basically just multiply that times 7. So if you have somebody that's dark, they should probably be around 420 units. Somebody with lighter skin should be at 490. I usually iris around 475. That's where I put it.
Can you show that right there? Just,
As far
Yeah.
as
But yeah,
You're
it's,
saying-
Show them on the scope.
so I think we need to see the scale.
okay, so this is her face here.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so she's, right there, right about 475. So if, that's as far open as we can go there. She's at 500 there. She's down to 300 there, but makes sense. So it's easiest to pick out. If I didn't catch focus or iris level on a camera and I was having a hard time picking her face out, I'd ask the camera operator, hey, can you double check your focus? Obviously when you're zoomed in, that's pretty much the whole picture is her face, so it makes it a lot easier. And that's when I would say it, so people are zooming in, checking their focus.
Sometimes it helps to run it flat too, so you can eliminate some of the chroma from
Oh, I got, you're saying as far as your setting on your scope?
Yes.
To help pick that out, yeah. Then what I would do is, so after you set your iris, set your patch, I pick a camera and I paint that and I get it exactly how I want it. And then I start matching the others from there. After I get that one exactly how I want it, I don't touch it again, because again, you just run it in circles. So ideally, you want to do it on, if say you have multiple talent, you want to do it on your 2-shot. So say camera 8 is your 2-shot, 7 and 9 are your singles. You get camera 8 looking perfect. You get it so you're happy with both talent on that camera. And then you can make 7 match one talent that's on the 2-shot, you know what I mean? But don't go back and start tweaking your 2-shot, because then you're gonna have to start tweaking your singles again too.
okay.
Where do you put flesh tone?
Your scope is sitting just on this line here.
You a little above or a little below? You try to go a little
Yeah,
above?
yeah.
I've seen the vector scope and waveform monitor look different in the display a lot. And usually, it's if I go here,
You
and
have-
I end up with that.
You get like presets?
Yeah, and then I end up with that display. What would you prefer us to be reading off of?
I would say how we had it here. So, yeah, so that's gained up, expands it, so you can see more detail in certain areas, but you're also losing out on some. So that's why I went that out. But yeah, I mean, I think you can see what you need to see here. And as far as the waveform, you can see what you need to see there.
Sometimes it gets messed up, because I prefer to be able to just switch between the two like this.
Yep.
But every once in a while, I'll have it where the waveform, maybe 4 waveforms in this monitor, and then the vector will be blown out. And I don't know how to reset it.
We don't have this model scope, so I would kind of just push buttons.
If you press and hold the button.
Yes.
Press and hold that waveform button.
mhm.
You'll get a menu.
Yeah, you get options over there, and sometimes it'll be in parade or overlay. And And sometimes it'll be in your vector scope might be in a gamma, looking at gamma or looking at
What that does is that will allow you to control one device from multiple RCPs. I don't think you're ever going to use it, but I'm never going to tell you, you don't need to know what that does, right? So I'm going to tell you what it does. If you ever came in and someone had enabled parallel, so you're like, hey, camera 8 is changing, but I'm not touching it over here, well, maybe this RCP is running in parallel with 8, and that's why it is. That's something that you can't necessarily just stumble into. You have to go into the security, the engineering mode, and enable it. So it's probably not anything, but if somebody ever got really deep into the menus and was playing around with that, that's what it would be. This is your camera power button. Right now, SOP is not going to be to power the cameras down at night, so you don't have to worry about that. But that's where you would power them back up.
And if somebody would say we need to reset camera, let's power it down.
Yep.
From there.
And hold it down, it's going to flash while it goes through the process. So slow flash, you're connected, but it's not on. Fast flash is when you held it down, and it's waiting to power back up. And then when you get a solid green light, that's when the camera's up. Test, we'll do a test pattern. So here we have calpulse. Bars, color bars. Close button will close down your iris. So if you wanted to close down the iris, and you wanted to check blacks, I got a bunch of blue in my blacks, that's the problem. That's a quick way to do it. You just close down the iris. Character, turns on your character generator. So that'll show you different pages with different menus. I can't imagine you're ever gonna wanna do that, but if somebody bumped it and turned it on, this isn't going home, so
Right.
they're not gonna see it in the control room. It's just gonna be on your confidence monitor is where you're gonna see that. But what you wanna know is to shut it off, you wanna hold it down for a few seconds. It's gonna cycle through to the last page and then it'll shut off.
That was character.
Yep, that's your character generator.
Does that appear in the viewfinder?
I believe so.
Okay.
We can run out there and check. It depends, I think, on how everything's wired. It definitely goes to your confidence monitor.
Right.
It definitely doesn't go to the control room.
See it, yeah. So hold down to turn off.
Yeah, and it's gonna cycle through. It takes you to the last page before it shuts off. So I guess it depends on which page you're on as far as how long that's gonna take. Okay. Standard will take you back to all the default settings at the RCP. I don't think you would ever want to do that. This block here is your auto setup block. So you can run skin detail, auto hue, and what that'll do is if you had a tight shot of somebody's face, it's gonna make it so that's the range that your skin detail affects. Right now we're saying we're not gonna use skin detail. It kind of makes the camera look soft, especially if you use too much. It can make the person's face look kind of pasty and stuff. So right now we're not using skin detail, but if you did want to set it up, that's the auto setup. I'll show you guys later how you can dial it in yourself, which I think is the better option, but that's what it is. With skin detail, you have a start break button, so you would hit skin detail auto hue, and it would flash. It would say in here ready, and you'd have to hit start, and that would actually execute the process. You can hit break in the middle of it and stop the process. Level does an auto level setup on some stuff. Again, it's not something you would run, and the good thing with this one is if you accidentally bumped it, you still have to hit start to initiate the process. These two you might use. We're going to set up scene files, but if ever something was off and you wanted to do a white balance, hit white or hit black, and it'll do it for you. Those ones you don't have to hit the start button, so I'll do a black balance. It's going to close down the iris for me, it's going to execute it, and it's going to come back up when it's done. There you go.
Let me ask you a question, and
Yeah.
I'm not getting you out of sequence here, but
It's okay.
this view right here, is that the default view? Is that always going to be there?
It is the default view of the touchscreen, but we can change it. So we got a button set up so it's a shortcut key to your scene files. But you can also call up our paint menus, and there's 11 pages of those. So I'll jump into that real quick as we get there. But yeah, it doesn't have to be this feedback.
Okay.
but again, I'll show you how you can change that stuff.
I mean, I just figure that's where I'd probably want to be, but if it wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, this is giving you some feedback on where your painting
Mm-hmm.
landed you. You know, so if you're familiar, you go, you know what, I'm usually at plus 29 in my reds, plus
Yep.
37 in my blues. You know, it's a good,
Yep.
good thing to have up.
Okay.
Jumping ahead, so 5600K, that's balanced now for daylight. So if the cameras ever go outside or something, or you're trying to do some really strange effect or something, the majority of the buttons, if it's lit, then
Mhm.
that is enabled. So
Right.
right now, 5600, so that's what we're balanced for. If it's off, it's not. The only exception, and I don't think you have any on this panel, our panel back home's a different model, it's a little wider, there's a few more buttons.
Mhm.
If it said gate off, well, obviously when the light's on, then it's off, okay? But I don't think you have any that are off, so pretty much if it's lit, it's on. Right now, skin detail is not enabled, now it is. Gate is gonna be certain zebra patterns for depending on what you have it defined as.
Mhm.
Sony allows you a ton of flexibility, so you can set that, but I'll show you, we were using it to set the skin detail. And again, we're not seeing it anywhere right now. It's just on your confidence monitors, and if you find it, you wouldn't see it here, the TV wouldn't see it. Saturation enables the saturation, which is your chroma. Black gamma allows you to paint in that range of the picture. This one's for future, there's nothing assigned to it. Paint turns on your paint menus. I'm gonna skip over all of those, so we'll go through all the
Gotcha.
buttons and knobs and stuff, and then we'll go back into those paint functions. Custom one, we define as the scene files, so that's a quick way to get into your scene files. Custom two, we haven't found a use for. So as we go through everything, if there's a menu function that you guys are like, you know what, I'm gonna go to that every day,
Mhm.
let me know, and we'll program custom two.
Okay.
Menu calls up a range of different menus. Again, I think we'll come back to that.
All right.
Select is when you're in the menus, this is how you're gonna select stuff. These encoder knobs, depending on what menu's called up, they have different functions, so we'll get back to those. ND, that's your neutral density, but it is also your star filter number 5. You can't see it here. So, 1 is clear, so that's no ND, that's where you want to be, but you could dial down to 5 for your star filter if you needed it, and then pop back up to clear. Color correction, these are lit because you have ND filters. You have filters in those wheels. There's no color correction filters, so that's why those aren't lit. They're not going to be lit, they won't be active. This is your master gain, so this is where you can gain up, and it just does it in the increments of 3. So normally I think you guys are going to run it with no gain, but if for whatever reason you're doing some kind of low light thing, camera goes out in the hallway or scene dock or something, you could gain up. Obviously if you overdo it, everything starts to get grainy. The good thing with the Sonys we found is our Grass Valley cameras, there was always some noise in the blacks.
Right.
It's not there in the Sonys. It's much better. So you probably have a little more range with that. These are your paint pots. So here you can paint red, green, blue for your whites, red, green, blue for your blacks. When this is not lit, you're painting in your blacks. Okay. When this is lit, now you're painting in your flares. You can see it's a little more subtle. Flares is basically, as the CCD's sensing light and stuff, you'll start to get some color bleeding into your blacks, and that allows you to kind of dial that back out. It's just some fine tuning, but you can see it doesn't have as much effect on the overall picture as in the blacks.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What was that you engaged here?
So the flares.
Okay.
So basically right now I'm painting in just my blacks, and this enables it so now you can paint in your flares. And the cool thing and the bad thing with the Sonys I found is there's usually like 3 or 4 ways to get to any one function.
Mhm.
So you can enable flares here and paint it, or I'll show you later, we can go into a menu and
Right.
get there, and there'll be a second menu where you can get there. But this is one thing I always pointed out as kind of a troubleshooting thing. So you come in and you're like, you know what, that guy's got a black sport coat on and I just can't get it right. I'm painting in my blacks, I'm really not seeing
Right.
any change. Maybe somebody bumped the flare button and you're actually painting with flares.
Right.
This absolute button, I kind of skipped over it. Right now these are in what we call a relative mode. So if right now red is at 0 when this knob is pointed at straight up at midnight, 12 o'clock. I run a scene file. Right now, that's pointed straight up 12 o'clock still, but red is at negative 27, okay? So now I can adjust this to 9 o'clock and we're at negative 58, okay? That's when we're in what's called a relative mode. It's all relative. It doesn't, there's no hard value assigned to this knob when it's pointed straight up. It's where it is when you assign the scene file. It's where it is when you power up the camera. If we go to absolute, that's always going to be 0 when it's pointed straight up. Makes sense?
Yep.
So I can go into custom 1, run my scene file, take it off. This comes out of absolute because that's not how we had the scene file assigned. When I turn it back on, it's going to take us
Back
right
to
back to
0.
0. So I went from negative 27 to 0 without touching this, but it's because when absolute is on, whenever that's pointed straight up, that's where you're at. Whenever this is pointed at 9 o'clock, you're always going to be at negative 62. So it's an absolute depending on where this is pointed. So back in Bristol, we don't run it in absolute. I recommend you don't. You know, this gives you more range,
Right.
but it's something to be aware of. You know.
So the relative does not change. That's not a relationship between red, green, and blue. It's just this knob
It's how
and
the-
its indicator.
Yep, it's how the knob's going to react.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in absolute, again, when these are pointed straight up, they're always going to be at 0. Where in relative, they can have other values. So I ran the scene file. So this is pointed straight up, and we're at plus 30. This one's pointed straight up, and we're at negative 27. In absolute, they'd have to be at,
Yep.
you know, that would have to be at like 2 o'clock, and that one would be at 10 o'clock or something to get you to those values. So I like that. There's pros and cons for either function, but the main thing for the training is just to be aware of it, you know. It kind of negates having scene files if you run it and then you throw it in absolute, because it depends on where your knobs are, what values you're getting. So the scene file, I guess it gets negated. So again, just something to be aware of. This is a slot for a memory card, which I think we're going to do to back everything up. The cool thing is you have, I think, 32 scene files, so we can have 2 or 3 that we need, one for each studio, and then just do a dozen backups of each one
Right.
or whatever, you'll be fine. But we can get a memory stick and back stuff up here. This is where you get your camera number, and you'll also get a tally here. So the camera's not online, you get amber numbers. When it is online, the whole box will turn red, and the numbers turn black. So you can see that it's hot. These, it's kind of hard to see, it's a little bit dark in here, but that's what tells you if your lens extender's on or a digital extender, digital lens extender. So that's something good. I've had that where I can't iris up enough. Well, somebody accidentally popped the lens extender on.
Yep.
And lost some of that range. Sensitivity and coarse buttons. These, it depends on what mode you're in with your iris. So when we're in relative mode with the iris, sensitivity has no effect. Coarse is another way to go from open to close. So we're in relative right now. I can take the iris all the way closed. I can take it all the way up to open with this coarse button. Okay. When relative is off, now I'm in absolute mode with my joystick. Coarse and sensitivity become my top and bottom end. So you can see
Gotcha,
I'm using
yeah.
coarse. So now I take that to close, but I can't iris all the way up. I can only go to 3.3 until I adjust that with the sensitivity knob. So it's pretty cool. Button on top, button on bottom. That sets your top end, that sets your bottom end. Okay, so that's in absolute mode with the joystick. In relative mode, sensitivity does nothing. Coarse you can take over, and it's a second function. Go from open to
Is
close.
that 2 knobs in there?
No, it's just one.
Okay.
Does that help?
Turn that overhead on.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I couldn't see that button. I just
Yeah,
saw-
I'm sorry.
That's
So
all right.
yeah, this
Yeah,
one
okay.
here. So this is your sensitivity.
Yeah.
And that's your coarse.
Got it.
So again, when that's in relative, this works as a second one.
Mm-hmm.
And sensitivity does nothing. When it's in absolute, this is how you can set your top and bottom. Something to be aware of.
That's the same for your blacks too?
No, this is just for the iris.
Okay.
So something to be aware of is relative is off. top and bottom are set for the same value, I can't change.
Mm,
Okay? So we're gonna run with relative on. So you're always gonna have that same range. Right now, the sensitivity is set to go from wide open to 6.3. We're saying no one's ever gonna change besides that range. If ever you were in a pinch and you had to close the iris down, well, you have your coarse knob to do it. Or you can also just hit the button and close the iris. We can go into the menu settings and adjust the sensitivity. And take two. Iris Master Black active. So when that is off, I don't have control of my PEDs or the iris. So that's a good one as a troubleshooting. If you ever come in, you're like, I don't have iris control, just double check that. So again, when it's lit, when it's green, it's active. Auto iris currently is off. Pop on, now it's on. I don't think you can use auto iris for anything
Auto
here.
left the building a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think of is if you're doing something, some kind of weird stunt out in the hallway or something, and they're running in and out of light, and you don't want to ride it or something like that, but.
Maybe if you're running 2 studios, then you have to go use the bureau cam.
There you go.
Put them in on.
Or set it and forget it and tell them not to get out of, don't leave the desk. So we're in relative iris, we talked about that. This is the same thing, so with your PEDs. So you have range here,
Mhm.
and it's coming off the scene file. Where when this is in absolute, pointed straight up is always gonna be 0. So just like we talked about with these
Right.
paint pots, that's all. The good news is run it the other way, is when you come in and the panel's inactive and you turn it on, it's gonna default to certain settings. One of them is it's gonna enable your iris and your master blacks. It's gonna put the iris in relative and the PEDs in relative too. So, that's good. So
Yes.
we found that was probably the best way to run everything, but it's
Yeah.
also, it saves you a couple steps. You don't have to kind of set up the RCP at all after that. The call button is you can hit that, you'll hear a chime here, and the button flashes at the camera. I think the tally on the back of the viewfinder flashes, doesn't do it on the front of the camera, so talent's not seeing it. But if your McCurdy died, I don't know, you have to get somebody's attention, that's one way of doing it. They can hit the call button at the camera head, and you'll hear a chime here, and that light will flash. We can adjust all the audio on all this stuff, so like, you're getting a tone when you hit these, we can change a custom tone. We can change the volume of that. We can change it so there's a tone when you turn knobs, and adjust the volume of that. When you hit the touchscreen. So there's a tone, obviously, when I hit the scene files, we can adjust that. Let's see, so that was a call button. This is the panel active, so now the panel's inactive. That'll turn it active. We found that works as a free button also.
Right.
So if, let's say, iris is all the way down and I'm at 6.4, but you're like, no, I need to close it more. You can shut it off, bring the iris back up, turn it back on, and that just extended our range. Okay. And do it again. So I'm gonna take it back because I couldn't open all the way. Now we're back to where we were, 1.8 to 6.4. Does that make sense?
Is that the range of the camera? I mean,
That's the-
1/8's the top end.
Yes, yep,
On
that's
on
wide
this
open.
lens?
Yeah, you were 1.4, I think, on the
Mhm.
on the Grass Valleys. We have Fuji lenses.
Yeah, right there.
You'll get a red alarm button, or red or amber. I can look in the manual and see if there's an issue. Solid green shows you're connected to the camera. I think it'll flash when the camera's powered off, and it'll be out when it's completely disconnected then. So if you're having a problem with your camera and you see network flashing or cable flashing, you know, there's something there. It's not the switch or something like that. So I think that's all the buttons. Any questions on any of those?
Now, black is just down here.
Yep, that's your pad, your
Got a nice
magic
little,
black.
nice little
Yeah.
indicator up there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
And-
that.
And you got it here too, so you're getting
Mhm.
a value of, right now we're at -5, -10, 14.
Cool.
Call-up menu, you have a few different areas. Scene is just back to your scene files again, okay? But that's pretty much the same as what we set up or custom one. That's a quick way to get to your scene files to recall them. When it's lit, that scene file is playing. Excuse me. You can shut it off. Right now there's no scene file playing. To store, you're going to hit store, and then where do you want to send it? Okay, so if I want to save it at 10, I just saved it at 10.
I wish it would say, okay, are you sure, you know,
Yeah.
but.
Are these, you put, do they have labels with the scene files, or
There's-
just
No.
scene 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, there's no way to give it a title like you could on the Grass Valley. So that's it for there. There's 6 pages, so you see my select knob. Is how I'm just cycling through
Mhm.
the pages. This is cool. You can also hit the select knob. We'll do it on this one. I'll show you on another one. Function, you have 2 pages here. I don't think you guys are going to use them. This is just feedback on your fiber. And this is, there's a picture output and a waveform output from the base stations. I don't think you're going to come in here and look at this at all. I don't even know how it's wired, where it was going, but I'm always going to tell you everything I know about everything, whether you're going to use it or not. But that's more of an engineering function. Multi is, you guys are running a multi-camera network, but none of the cameras are set up, or none of the RCPs are set up as a master and subordinate. This is just feedback. You can't set it here, but that's showing you where we could have it where, let's say you're doing Monday Night Football and you got 13 cameras and they're outside and you're constantly riding the color temperature. You can set this RCP up to be the master, all the others is subordinate, so when you adjust the color temperature on this one, it follows on all the others. But again, this is just a menu where you can see that, and it will show you the status that this is the master and the others are the subordinate. You can't set it up from here. It would be an engineering mode thing that they would go in and set up. I guess if somebody came in here and was getting deep into the menu settings and you're having some kind of issues, you could check and make sure that wasn't it, similar to if parallel was on.
Right.
I got a question. Say like we have an issue here and we call on the help channel and then engineering goes to the MCP. I mean, they could take over what we're doing. They could find out right away,
Yeah,
right?
you're absolutely going to run in parallel at that point.
Okay.
Yep. They take over and
Yep.
whatever changes they would make, you would see them here.
Yep.
Whatever changes you're making, they're going to see there.
Okay.
Yep. Right now for config, you can get into the RCP, so you can go into displays and sounds. I don't think this is anything you're going to mess with, but this is where we can adjust the sound for the call button. So when the camera op hits the call button, that's what you're hearing now. Unless we change it to here, then you can hear that chime. There's a volume, so we can crank it, so when they call, you hear it even louder. The clear button, this is pretty cool for any one of your menus. If there's a clear button, you hit clear and it's going to highlight stuff. So I can isolate it, so I want to clear the value just here, so it goes back from 99 to the default of 50. Or I can hit clear and I hit the title of the menu page and it does everything. That could be clear.
That's good.
So it'll get, that's your get out of jail free card.
That takes you back to defaults.
Exactly. So if you make a bunch of changes, and you're like, this is a mess, I just want to start over, you can clear and just clear a particular function, red, green, blue, or you can do all of them and take them back.
Or go
So-
back to your scene file.
Yeah, exactly. Go into customs, shut your scene file off, turn it back on.
Yeah.
So this is where we can customize the sound for the call button, for the touchscreen. Switches would be the knobs, and then RE would be buttons. So you can play with those, but right now they're all set for pretty much default 50. I don't think you're gonna mess with them. I'm gonna exit back. Oh, there's more too. With you can do the brightness of the LEDs, your tally, brightness of the LCD. I believe there's some buttons, and I don't think we have any on this panel, but we have some where the button has characters on it, so you can adjust the backlight of that to make it. Again, this isn't anything I don't think you guys are ever going to touch, but this is what I was showing you before. It wasn't an option on the other one. If I'm on page 5, I can use the select knob, just go back to 4, 3, 2, 1. If you start getting into some of the deeper menus where there's a bunch of them, you can hit the select knob and get a list of what they are, and you can scroll to it there, and then click on it, and it'll take you right to 5. So that's cool. So like if you're in, when we get into the paint, we have I think 11 pages, Anyway, I need detail right now. I don't remember what page it is. I don't want to scroll through looking for it. You can hit that, look for detail, dial down to it, hit it, and pick it that way. Exit will always take you back. So it took me back one. Exit again, it'll take me back one more. Exit again, it'll take me back one more. Exit again, it'll take me out. We were in config. We were in RCP config. Information is just feedback. You're going to get software versions and stuff you're never going to, I can't imagine you're ever going to need. I take that back. So say you guys are having a major issue, you call Sony, and they say, well, what version of software do you have for your RCP? Now you guys know it's in the config menu. You can get network information. Probably not anything you're going to need to know, but I'm never going to tell you. You don't need to know. I'm going to point out what it is, and then you can.
Tony said I didn't need to know that.
Yeah.
And then last, security is where you can go into, and it's going to be password protected. You can get into the engineering mode, and that's going to open up other menus and other functions that you don't need on a day-to-day basis. But that's what that is. So that's all your basic menus, with the exception of the ones that you're actually going to use every day. So you kind of could have slept through that part. This is the part you definitely want to pay attention to. We set it up so your paint is going to come up with 11 pages. And I hit select, and you can see what all 11 are, but we're just going to go through them all real quick anyway. So white, this is where we can paint in our whites. So you can use the encoder knob here, or you can use the knobs down here. What's cool about that is if you have that up, is you're actually getting feedback of where you're at. So you can be like, I can't figure out why the picture looks the way it does. Well, I'm at -98 with my blues. That's probably the issue. Again, you can hit clear, and I can clear out just the blues. I can hit
Awesome.
blues, green. That looks pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You can hit clear and hit white, and it's going to detent everything that was on that menu.
Yeah, I like that.
Color temp. When I hit that tab, now I get into my color temp. So right now it's set at 3200 Kelvin. We're actually running the scene files around 2800. It's usually 2788. Okay. Auto trace white, auto white balance. So auto white balance, we'll do a white balance, same as here. Auto trace we're not going to use. ATW is, the camera is going to constantly compensate the white balance. It's constantly checking. We're trying to compensate. So I think that would drive you nuts. That's not how we do the show, but that's what ATW is. Page 2 is your blacks. So same as painting down here. I can paint up here. You get a little more range. So obviously like this one I maxed out at 41. Here, I'm not going to max out. These are infinity knobs. You're not going to max out until you hit 99. And this is also master black here. So you can see just like your master ped, you can adjust it from there. So that, like I said, good and bad, there's like 4 different ways you can adjust your master ped. ABB, auto black balance. Again, you would do it from up here, or you could do it from there. This is for painting in your flares, same as enabling it down here, painting in your flares there. Off button is not lit, so the flares are enabled. When it's lit, now they're off, and you can't paint there, if that makes sense. Detail. This is your overall detail. We're currently not adding any detail, not taking anything out. So right now the scene file's set for zeros across the board. But if you guys want to start playing with detail, that's where it is. Page 5 is skin detail. Same thing. We're not using skin detail back home. We find it just starts to make the camera look soft. We're not using it. But you guys feel free to play with it. Should we go through how to set the skin detail?
What do you think, Brad?
I've never been asked